like to begin this morning by thanking all of you for praying for us. You know, Susan and I, as all of you know, along with Sister Beth and Joshua, Dennis and Elaine, we were in India last week for a short-term mission. And because of your prayers, we came home with much rejoicing. We had a wonderful time of fellowship among ourselves, and we also had a wonderful time, of communion with the Christians there. We were there mainly to train pastors and at the same time for mission exposure. And truly the Lord's presence, His power, and His protection was with us. So thank you all of you for praying for us. By the way, in India it's only 5 a.m. right now. So if I fall asleep, you will understand. As we all know, the Bible has mentioned and classified many of men's deeds as sins. It has also listed down some corresponding punishment for some of the sins, especially in the Old Testament. Now, of the many sins that are mentioned in the Bible, blasphemy or profanity against the Lord is one of the most serious. And it is one that was dealt with, with speed and with urgency. In the Old Testament, one of the ways that people punish others for sin, for those who sin against God, is death by stoning. And here are some of the sins that incurred death by stoning. Number one would be murder. If you premeditate and kill someone, and that would be murder, and that is death by stoning. Another would be idolatry. Another would be if a person approaches Mount Sinai while God is there, while Moses was talking to God, that is death by stoning. Another is necromancy, witchcraft, occultism. All this, they will incur death penalty. And then there is blasphemy. And then there is homosexual practice and sexual immorality of all sorts. Now, of all this and of some other sins that I did not mention, blasphemy is the one that was dealt most, with speed, with urgency, either by God directly or through His people. Now, we live in the age of grace, and today we don't stone people to death anymore because of sin. Instead, we offer them forgiveness, restoration through Jesus Christ our Lord. The Lord Jesus Christ died for us on the cross, and our sins are forgiven, because of that. However, we have to understand that even in this day, the sin of blasphemy is still a very serious sin in the sight of God. Even today, it is an offense that is totally deplorable to Him, and it is considered an abomination to Him. And because of that, this morning, as we continue our studies of the series on holiness, we want to talk about this. We want to come to understand, in particular, what is blasphemy and why is this sin, such a terrible sin in the sight of God. Now, let us begin by trying to understand what is blasphemy. Now, blasphemy generally means to speak contemptuously about God or to treat with scorn anything that is of Him. In other words, if you speak with despise against God, that is blasphemy. Or if you treat anything, not just His name, but anything that is of Him, with scorn, that is considered blasphemy. If someone tells you have to read the Bible, and you say, this book is full of nonsense, I don't need it, that is blasphemy. We are going to have communion. If you come and take the communion lightly and mindful of the fact that we are remembering the death of Jesus Christ, that is blasphemy. If a person comes to worship, if a woman comes to worship and dressed like a prostitute, I'm mindful of the fact that we are in the presence of God, that is blasphemy. So we have to be very careful. Blasphemy could be speaking contemptuously against God, or to treat anything, that is of Him, related to Him, with scorn. Blasphemy is also to defy or to disobey God out of irreverence. I know that all of us at one time or another we disobey God. Probably sometimes out of fear, out of lack of faith. However, if we disobey God or we defy His commands out of irreverence, out of scorn, that is blasphemy. If someone invites you to come to church and you say, church, that is for sissies, for the weak, for the useless. I don't need church. That is blasphemy. If the Holy Spirit wants you to show kindness, to your mother-in-law, and you say, I know better than God. She does not deserve my kindness. That is blasphemy. If God calls your son, to be a missionary, and you said, no, why should God, control my son? Why should he be the one to decide what's good for my son? I know better. That's blasphemy. Because you defy and you disobey God out of irreverence. Now, blasphemy is also to criticize or to despise the name, the character, the work, or the attributes of God in any way. Let's say you are very successful in your career. And you say, look at me. Where am I now? No one, not even God, could bring me down. That's blasphemy. If you are seriously sick, and you say, God is ridiculous. He is stupid for making me sick. That's blasphemy. If you are rich and prosperous, and you say, my intelligence, my diligence made me what I am today. Who is God? That is blasphemy. So this morning, we have to be very careful because we have to understand that blasphemy can come in the form of words, thoughts, deeds, or even, in our attitude. So we have to be very careful. You see, in the Old Testament, there are at least 5 Hebrew words that are translated as blasphemy or to blaspheme in our English Bible. The first word is barak. And barak means to curse God verbally. The second word is gadab. And that is to revile or to mock God, to insult, to laugh at God. The third word is charab, and that is to defy or to disobey God in contempt. The word that is found in our passage today is nakab, and that is to insult, to abuse the name of God. And then finally, the other word is naats, and that is to scorn, to despise, to look down on God or anything that is of God. So from here we can see that blasphemy is not just, a matter of speech. It can be, a matter of attitude, a matter of doings, and a matter of even of thinking. So we have to be very careful. In the New Testament, Jesus used another word. And that word is blasphemia, and that's where we get the English word blasphemy. And that is to ascribe obvious, clear manifestations of God to the enemy, to Satan. And in the passage, Jesus, warned us against blaspheming against the Holy Spirit. So from here, we have to understand again, blasphemy can be found anywhere. So we have to be extra careful. Now, all these types of blasphemy are serious sins in the sight of God. Whether committed through words, through thoughts, through deeds. In the Bible, there is little distinction given between someone who openly abuses the name of God, or someone who deliberately, ignores His command. So, for both, the death penalty was imposed. And let me remind you, in the Old Testament times, in Bible times, these things were imposed, the penalties were imposed with speed, with urgency, because, to blaspheme against God is something very, very serious. So with this meaning of blasphemy now clear to us, we are now going a little bit deeper, and we will try to understand why, blasphemy is such a terrible thing in the sight of God. If we look at the passage that we are studying today, we can see that there are at least 3 reasons. Number 1, blasphemy is such a terrible sin because it is a form of rebellion. It is a form of insubordination to God. You see, blasphemy in the sight of God is very awful because it is, for Him, blasphemy is rooted in the willful act of insubordination that Satan and his cohorts, Lucifer and his cohorts, displayed when they rebelled against God. So blasphemy is an abomination to God because it displays the rebellious spirit of the enemy, the rebellious spirit of Satan. When Frederick the Great was the king of Prussia, he once went to war. And in the middle of the war, he decided to change his plan, and he gave an order. At a certain hour of the night, no light, no lamp should be found within the camp of the Prussian army. And he gave that, under pain of death. One night, he went to the camp to inspect whether the army was following his order. Lo and behold, as he was walking through the camp, he saw a light coming out of a tent. And it was the tent of the captain. He entered the tent, and the captain was writing a letter to his wife, and he was about to conclude and seal the letter. And the king said, "What in the world are you doing? Don't you know I have an order?" And when the captain saw the king, he was frightened. Immediately he knelt down and asked for forgiveness. But the king did not respond to him. The king said, "Sit down. Take out your letter and write these words that I am going to dictate to you." So the captain took out the letter and he obeyed. And these were the words of the Prussian king. "Tomorrow I am going to be hanged, in the scaffold." And true enough, the following day he was put to death because of insubordination. If insubordination is something very serious in the sight of earthly kings, it is even more in the sight of God. Now in our passage today, we are told a similar story. We are told that there was a man who was born of a Jewish mother and an Egyptian father. And one day he went to the camp of the Israelites. And as a result, there was a quarrel. And in the midst of the quarrel, he blasphemed the name of God. He even cursed the name of God. As a result, he was brought to Moses. He was incarcerated, and eventually he was put to death. Now, many of you may be asking, why? Why was this man executed for something that is seemingly small and minor? Now, to understand this, we need to know that for the Israelites, a name is not just a label. A name is not just a brand. For the Israelites, a name is something very sacred, very important. They don't use a name just to distinguish one person from another, just to call one person and another. But for them, a name is a symbolic representation of the character and the person, of the name, of the person that was referred to in the name. It is a sacred statement of who that person is or of who he professed to be or he wanted to be. And this is particularly true when it refers to the name of God. So because of that, the Israelites, they don't utter the name of God. They are very afraid even to call out the name of God. Now, if you know the history of our Bible, you will also understand this. You know, when the Bible writers, when the scribes, when they were copying the Bible, whenever, there is a name of God, they would substitute it, with some symbols because they are afraid to write the name of God. And then sometimes it is inevitable that they need to write the name of God. This is what they would do. Before they write the name of God, they would wash their hands. Sometimes they would even take a bath because they hold the name of God as something very sacred. Now, in our passage today, I want you to take note of two very significant things. Number one, our passage tells us that that person blasphemed the name of God. Now, you see, as I told you, the name of God was held as extremely sacred. And because of that, the Jews, they do not dare utter or articulate the name of God. To do so, for them would be to despise the authority of God. To do so, would be tantamount to treason, in the sight of the Jews. However, our passage says, the person blasphemed the name. Moses, even as he was writing, this passage, he did not dare write the specific name of God. But this person, he went out and he uttered the name of God. And not only that, the second thing I want you to pay attention to is, this person did not just blurt out the name of God, he even cursed the name of God. Now, we do not know exactly what he said when he cursed God. Now, but many Bible scholars believe that given his ethnic background, the person was deliberately despising the God of the Jews. He was deliberately pulling down, the integrity, the honor of God. Because he was in a fight with a Jew, and he was unwilling, to submit to the Jew. He was unwilling to lose the quarrel with the Jew. So he deliberately called out the name of God to show that he does not have to submit to the Jews nor to their gods. And it was precisely for this reason. Because his heart was full of resentment for anything that is Jewish. So he called out the name of God and he blasphemed the name of God. So, because of that, he was dealt with immediately. Brothers and sisters, we have to be very careful. Blasphemy is a very serious sin. It is even more serious than what the captain did, to Frederick the Great. To blaspheme God, just for you to understand this a bit more, is even more serious than when you stand before your father and slap him or you spit, on your dad. I don't think any of us would dare do that. But to blaspheme the name of God is something that is even more serious than that. Our God is the true, only God. Majestic God, full of power, full of love, full of glory. He deserves our wholehearted devotion, our wholehearted worship, our wholehearted submission. And the Bible also tells us that our God is a jealous God who will guard, his integrity, his honor with passion. So brothers and sisters, let us be very careful with our words, with our deeds, with our thoughts. Let us be careful not to blaspheme God in any way, because blasphemy in his sight is a sign of rebellion and insubordination. Now, some of you may be thinking, so that's Old Testament. These days, I don't think God, deals with his sins seriously. Now let me tell you a story, from Scotland. This is a true story. In Scotland, there used to be a group of atheists and free thinkers. Every week they would gather together and talk about their beliefs, their convictions, talk about anything that is anti-God, and anything that is related to their club. But one day they decided that, they need to elect a new leader because their president, the president of their club, was getting old. But their election rule was very simple. Any man, any member who could give a profane statement, something that is, very irreverent, that person would be the president. So they had a competition, and people started, to voice out, make statements that were irreverent. Now, one man, he uttered an oath, and then he cursed the name of God. And his curse was so blasphemous, sacrilegious. Even the other members, they were shocked. So eventually, he was, elected as president of the club. But lo and behold, immediately after he was elected president, this is a true story, his tongue began to swell. And it became so swollen that it protruded out. He could not bring it back. So they brought him to the hospital. When the doctor saw it, the doctor was even shocked. And the doctor said, "We don't understand what this is. We have never read of this in the books. We could not treat him." Eventually, the man passed away. Brothers and sisters, I know that God does not stone us to death today because of blasphemy or of other sins. But we have to understand this is still something that is very serious in His sight. And I want to remind all of us, especially when we are in suffering, when we are in pain. I can say this from experience. As many of you know, I've been in pain for a number of months. Sometimes when we are in pain, we tend to blame God for everything. And we tend to develop a resentment for God, for allowing things to happen, for allowing us to suffer pain. We have to be very careful of that because, for all we know, in our hearts we may have already blasphemed God. God is sovereign, majestic, worthy of our submission, worthy of our obedience. We have to be very careful. Second reason, blasphemy is such a terrible sin because it is an outward expression of an inward hatred or inward irreverence for God. Let us now take a second look at the passage at the man who cursed God. Particularly, I want us to focus on the background of his life. Now, the Bible tells us that this man was a half-Jew. His mother, was a Jew. His father was an Egyptian. Now, the Bible does not tell us where and when the parents met and where and when they got together. However, it is very likely that they met each other and they got together when the Israelites were slaves in Egypt. And many Bible scholars believe that the problem of this man, can be traced back to that day. That day when the Jewish woman married an unbeliever, married, an Egyptian, that was where his problem started. Because you see, as an Israelite woman, she should have known that it was illogical, at the same time immoral for her to be married to an unbeliever, to be married to an Egyptian. It was illogical because the Egyptians were their tormentors. They were their cruel masters, controlling them, enslaving them. So it was illogical for someone to be willing, to be married to a person or a tribe, a race that is cruel and violent. And it was immoral because the Egyptians they don't worship Jehovah, the one and true God. They only worship, the many false gods of the Egyptians. So, if that woman was a noble woman, if she was a God-fearing, logical woman, she would not have married that man. However, the mere fact that she married that man shows that in her heart, she has this hidden dislike for God. She does not have high regards for God. In her heart, she had deep irreverence for God. So when she was about to be married, she did not think of this. She did not think of the glory of God. She did not think, about her relationship with God. And many Bible scholars believe that her irreverence for God rubbed off, on her son. That is why in our passage, I want you to take note. One day, this half Jew, half Egyptian went into the camp of the Israelites. That's what the Bible tells us. Now, we have to understand that when... This must be good. This is from the doctor. Now, we have to understand when the Israelites were traveling from Egypt to the Promised Land, while they were in the wilderness, whenever, the pillar of God stopped, they had to be at camp. They had to set up camp. And whenever they set up camp, they set camp according to their tribes. They don't mix with each other. And then, foreigners and half-Jews, they don't set their camps among the Israelites. They have their own camps away from the Israelites. And those foreigners, half-Jews, they were not supposed to loiter into the camp. They were not supposed, to mingle and rub shoulders, with the Israelites. They are accepted, as part of God's, blessing to be in the Promised Land, but they are not allowed, to loiter, to live in the camp of the Israelites. However, our passage tells us that this man boldly, out of irreverence for God, not wanting to be controlled by these things, he ventured into the camp of the Israelites. And then eventually he got into a fight. And many Bible scholars believe that the fight with the Jew was a fight about his unauthorized, entry into the camp. And as they were fighting, lo and behold, in anger, in passion, he blurted out what was inside, his heart. For the longest time, his resentment for the Jews, his resentment, for the God of Israel was deep, hidden. Nobody knew, because his mother was a Jew. But on that day, like a man who was drunk, he drew away his inhibition and he, expressed what was truly his passion. And it is because of this, because of the hidden resentment, dislike, disrespect of God, that he was, stoned to death. I have told you, and you have all known, that last month we went to India. And one of our main ministries is to train pastors. Now, most of those who came for training were former Hindus. And many of them still have friends, relatives that are Hindus. They all used to worship the different gods of the Hindus. By the way, in India, they have about 330 million gods, in case you do not know. So they were worshiping all these gods. But that day, that time, during the training, whenever I mentioned something about their own religion or one of the gods that they used to worship, many of the pastors there, they would laugh, they would sneer. And if you look at their face, it was very obvious, with their contorted face, that they despise these things, they hate these things. However, if I talk about God, about the greatness of God, the love of God, the power of God, they would clap their hands. And they would say, Amen, praise the Lord. Why is that so? Because now that they have known the truth, they despise, the gods that they use to worship. Now, in the same manner, however, inversely, if a person blasphemes God, it just shows what is inside that person's heart. The reason why a person is able to blaspheme God, it is because in his heart, he has this great dislike. Just like the pastors, they have great dislike for their gods. These people have great dislike for the God that we worship. So this morning again, we have to examine our hearts always carefully. Because a lot of times, our problem is there. That is why the Bible said, guard your heart with all diligence, for from it, flows the spring of life. Many times, our actions, our thoughts, our attitudes come from the heart. That is why, as I have reminded you, do not allow any resentment of God to stay there. Because there are so many things that are happening around us, and a lot of times we allow the things of the world, our cares, our worries, our pains, to make our heart callous and hard towards God. Make us irreverent towards Him. Make us resent Him, hate Him, dislike Him. And one day it is going to burst out, and if God does not bestow His mercy, we may end up, like that half-Egyptian man. We have all heard of Stalin, Joseph Stalin. We all know that he was a dictator, of Russia. And during his reign, we all know he killed a lot of Christians, burned a lot of churches. He tore down, tore apart many Bibles. He was such a cruel and violent man. According to history, he had killed about 6 million to 9 million Christians and those who opposed him. So he was such a violent man. So in essence, he had killed more men than Hitler. But many of us probably do not know this. When Stalin was young, he was a Christian. He used to go to church. In fact, when he was young, he attended a seminary. He was preparing himself, to be a full-time minister of the gospel. However, because of the influence of Nietzsche and of the other philosophers, he turned his back on God. So we have to be very careful. There are so many things that could turn our back on God. It could be cares, it could be worries, it could be pains, it could be philosophies, it could be our education, it could be our success. There are many things that could turn us against God. Be very careful. Stalin, when he turned his back on God, he never returned. And according to his own daughter, when he was about to die, lying, in bed, in his deathbed, weak, he still was resistant of God. During those times, according to his daughter, he had many hallucinations. He dreamt of demons coming to get him. He dreamt of death, evil spirits. But never once did he repent. Never once did he return to God. In fact, according to his own daughter, just before he died, he was really very weak. Suddenly he, woke up and then he sat up on his bed. He raised his fist against God. He could not talk at the time, but he raised his fist against God, and then he fell back on his pillow. He died. What a pity. What a pity. A man who used to follow God. A man, who was already willing, ready, to serve the Lord. He was already preparing for the philosophy of the world took him away from God. And he developed a deep resentment for God. So brothers and sisters, be very careful of what is there. Be very careful of how we respond, react to the things around us, especially in these last days. The Bible had already told us, in the last days there will be many false teachers, false philosophies, false Christ. Be careful. And one more thing. Blasphemy is such a terrible sin because it is an outright denial of God's holiness and of His uniqueness. Now, let us look at the passage one more time, one last time. Now, this time, I want you to pay attention to how or where the story was situated, was positioned. Now, you will notice in the passage that Moses was giving the law, actually. He was listing down, writing down in black and white, the laws of God. The ordinances, the commandments of God. He was telling the people the do's and don'ts, that they need to follow. However, take note, in the midst of these commandments and imperatives, he put in a story. We may think that story is out of place because it is a list of commands and then suddenly there is a story. Now, why did Moses do that? What was his intention? What was his reason? Moses actually was trying to make the people understand. He was reiterating a very important fact that our God is holy, therefore you have to be holy. As he was listing down all these things, he was telling the people you have to be holy. And then he put in this story to help them visualize, help them understand why they have to be holy. You have to be holy because our God is so holy. He is so holy that no one can even blaspheme Him and then live. So that was the intention. You have to understand that Moses was a very creative communicator. So this story was a strategic, creative ploy to convey, to get across a very important message. By telling this story, he was saying, look at the man. He did not recognize the holiness of God and he lived an unholy life. He did not recognize that God is such a reverent God. So he lived an irreverent life. So because of that, all of you, with all these laws, you have to be very careful. Our God is a holy God, therefore we have to be holy. That actually is the whole theme of the book of Leviticus. And Moses here was just doing, a creative way, a creative thing, in order to communicate and reiterate that very important truth. Now, the story is told that there were some men in New York, Catskill, New York, and these people were working. They were working in a shop. And as they were working, suddenly there was a strong, violent thunderstorm. Lightning, thunder everywhere. And, the workers, they were very afraid. However, one of the men said, I don't understand what you're afraid of. I am not afraid. I'm not afraid of the lightning. I'm not afraid of the thunder. I'm not afraid even of God. I can defy the Almighty. With that, he went out, into the rain. He raised his fist against God and he said, strike me if you dare. To his surprise, to his regret, a lightning struck him. Right there and then, he died. We have to understand, brothers and sisters, God's name represents His holiness, His sovereignty, His power, His uniqueness. Our God is a unique God, way, way above all the other gods. Because of that, we are also to be a unique people, set apart, holy, different from the world. And that is the intention of the story, to help us understand that we that our God is holy. We have to be holy. If you blaspheme God, you are denying His holiness. You are denying, His uniqueness. So may the Lord help us, and may all of us be very careful. Now, in closing, I would like to reiterate again to you what is the meaning of blasphemy. However, I want to do it in a practical way. I want to help you understand. I want to flesh out what is blasphemy in real life. And as I do so, I want you to examine. I'm going to list down, some expressions of blasphemy in real life. And I want you to examine yourself one by one. If in any way we have blasphemed against God, we need to be thankful because He did not strike us dead. But we also need to be thankful. We need to ask Him for forgiveness. We need to make our hearts, ourselves right before Him. Okay. Now, this is how blasphemy looks like. You are guilty of blasphemy if you assault or abuse God verbally, or you utter His name in vain with disrespect. Careful. I know that many of us, we utter the name of God in vain, without respect, and that is blasphemy. Something happened, oh my God, and we cursed and we added some cuss word. May the Lord help us. Think, have we been guilty of this? You are guilty of blasphemy if you defy, disobey God with irreverence, or you question His power, His authority. Why do you care? Why do you control me? Why do you have to do this and that? You are guilty of blasphemy if you incite or influence others to disobey Him, to rebel against Him, to go against Him. May the Lord help us. Sometimes, subconsciously, unconsciously, probably we do that. You are guilty of blasphemy if you say something that misrepresents His uniqueness, His holiness, His glory, His character, His authority. God is holy, God is unique, and if you misrepresent His holiness, His character, that is blasphemy. And one more thing, you are guilty of blasphemy if you pretend, feign holiness. You come to church pretending to be holy, but yet outside you are not holy. And that is blasphemy. Or if you refuse to live a holy life in defiance of God. That is a subtle kind of blasphemy. And may the Lord help us. Now this morning, I'm not here to guilt trip you, to make you, guilty of whatever. However, I am presenting the fact. This is what the Bible teaches us. Today, we are not stoned to death because of blasphemy. However, in God's sight, blasphemy is still a very serious and terrible sin. We have to be extra careful. We have to be holy because our God is holy. So let us pray. Father God, we thank you for revealing once again to us who you are and how we ought to respond to you. Forgive us because indeed there are many times that we despise you, that we insult you, that we set you aside, unmindful of the fact that you are the holy, all-powerful, sovereign, majestic God. Many times we demand things of you, and not remembering that we do not have a right in any way to demand anything from you. Many times we question your decisions, your authority, your power. Many times we disobey you simply because we want to defy you. Father, forgive us. And so we pray that by your grace, by your mercy, you will make us to be holy. We know that in and of ourselves, we cannot be holy. However, we are thankful because in you, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. This is our prayer in Jesus'